In the burning sands of Tatooine, Anakin Skywalker committed an act so dark that it sent ripples through the Force itself. He slaughtered an entire village of Tusken Raiders, women and children included, driven by rage and grief over his mother's death. But here's the thing that keeps Star Wars fans awake at night. Anakin actually told someone about it. He confessed to Padmé, sobbing in her arms about what he'd done. Yet, he never breathed a word to the one person who might have actually helped him process this trauma, Master Yoda. Today, we're exploring one of the most fascinating alternative timelines in Star Wars history. What would have happened if Anakin had walked into Yoda's chambers after returning from Tatooine and laid bare the darkness festering in his soul? Let's establish what we're working with here. This is Attack of the Clones era Anakin, fresh off his first major fall to the dark side. The Tusken Massacre happens roughly 10 years into his Jedi training, right before the Clone Wars ignite across the galaxy. At this point, Anakin is already showing warning signs. He's arrogant, he's attached to Padmé, and he's got serious authority issues with the Jedi Council. But he hasn't crossed the ultimate line yet. He's not Darth Vader. He's a traumatized young man who just watched his mother die in his arms after being tortured for weeks. The Jedi Code explicitly forbids attachment, but it doesn't actually forbid feeling emotions. This is something fans often get wrong about the Order. Yoda himself says in The Phantom Menace, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. He's not saying don't feel fear, he's warning about the progression of unchecked emotion. The Jedi are supposed to acknowledge their feelings and then let them pass through them like water through a stream, not bottle them up until they explode. So why didn't Anakin confess? The answer is layered, and actually quite tragic when you examine it. First, there's the obvious, fear of punishment. Anakin had just massacred an entire village. Even by wartime standards, this was genocide. He didn't just kill the warriors who kidnapped his mother. He explicitly states to Padmé that he killed them all, every single one. The novelization by R.A. Salvatore goes even deeper, describing how Anakin was methodical about it, how he hunted them down with cold precision. But there's something deeper at play here. The Jedi Council had always been skeptical of Anakin. Mace Windu openly questioned whether he should be trained at all. The Council sensed fear in him from day one, and despite Obi-Wan's best efforts, that fear never fully dissipated. Anakin knew he was constantly being watched, constantly being measured against an impossible standard. He was supposed to be the chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force, yet he felt the Council's distrust like a weight on his shoulders, every single day. There's also the matter of Jedi emotional training, or rather the lack thereof. The Order was excellent at teaching lightsaber combat and Force techniques, but they were remarkably bad at teaching emotional regulation to someone who didn't join as an infant. Anakin came to the temple at 9 years old, after forming deep attachments to his mother and to the idea of being a hero who saves people. The Jedi basically told him to stop feeling those things, without giving him proper tools to process them. It's like telling someone to stop being hungry, without teaching them how to cook. Now here's where things get interesting. Yoda wasn't just any Jedi Master. At nearly 900 years old, he'd seen everything. He'd witnessed the rise and fall of countless Jedi, guided thousands through their darkest moments, and possessed a wisdom that went beyond simple rule-following. When Yoda tells Luke in The Empire Strikes Back that he's seen Jedi fall to the dark side before, he's not exaggerating. He has the institutional memory of the entire Order. What makes Yoda uniquely qualified to help Anakin is his understanding of the dark side's seduction. In the Clone Wars animated series, we see Yoda actually confront manifestations of his own dark side on the Force planet of Moraband. He acknowledges his capacity for darkness rather than denying it exists. This is crucial because it means Yoda understands that falling to darkness isn't about being inherently evil. It's about giving in to your worst impulses in moments of pain. Furthermore, Yoda had already sensed something was wrong. After Qui-Gon's death, Yoda specifically worried about Anakin's training. He felt the disturbance in the Force when Shmi died. According to supplementary materials, Yoda meditated on Anakin's pain, but chose not to intervene directly, trusting Obi-Wan to handle it. This turned out to be a catastrophic miscalculation, but it shows Yoda was paying attention. Let's walk through how this conversation might have unfolded. Imagine Anakin returning to Coruscant, the weight of what he's done crushing him. Instead of bottling it up and letting it fester, he goes to Yoda's quarters. This wouldn't be easy. Every instinct would be screaming at him to hide his shame, to present the facade of the perfect Jedi. But what if grief and guilt overwhelmed fear? Yoda would have immediately sensed Anakin's turmoil. The ancient master could read emotions like we read books. When Anakin began confessing, describing his mother's death and his subsequent rampage, Yoda wouldn't have interrupted. This is important because Yoda's teaching style, when dealing with genuine pain rather than testing students, was to listen first. We see this in his interactions with Luke, where he lets Luke make mistakes and discover truths rather than lecturing him immediately. The critical moment would come after Anakin finished speaking. Based on Yoda's character throughout the saga, he likely wouldn't have immediately condemned Anakin or called for his expulsion. Instead, Yoda would have acknowledged the pain. He might have said something like, "Terrible your loss is, natural your anger was, but consumed by it, you became. The dark side, this is." What Yoda understood, that other council members didn't, is that shame drives people deeper into darkness. When you feel like a monster, you start acting like one, because you think that's all you can be. Yoda would have needed to separate Anakin's actions from Anakin's identity. You did a monstrous thing, but you are not irredeemable. This distinction could have changed everything. If Anakin had confessed and received proper guidance, the entire trajectory of the galaxy shifts. First and most obviously, Anakin wouldn't be carrying this massive secret that created a wedge between him and the Order. Secrets are poison in any relationship, and they're especially toxic when you're part of an organization built on trust and transparency. Every time Anakin looked at Obi-Wan or Yoda after the massacre, a part of him wondered if they knew, if they could sense what he'd done. With the secret exposed, Yoda could have implemented actual healing measures. The Jedi had techniques for dealing with trauma. They just rarely used them for knights and masters who were supposed to be beyond such concerns. Anakin could have undergone intensive meditation training, focused specifically on processing grief and guilt. He might have been temporarily removed from combat duty during the Clone Wars, which would have been controversial, given his importance, but ultimately beneficial. Here's something crucial that often gets overlooked. If Anakin had worked through his guilt over the Tuskens with Yoda's help, he would have developed healthier coping mechanisms for dealing with fear and loss. When those visions of Padmé dying in childbirth began haunting him in Revenge of the Sith, instead of immediately jumping to desperate measures, he might have gone to Yoda again. He'd have established a precedent that confessing your darkest fears to your masters doesn't result in rejection, but in help. The Clone Wars would have unfolded differently too. Palpatine's entire manipulation strategy relied on exploiting Anakin's isolation and his belief that the Jedi didn't understand him. If Anakin had a genuine support system within the Order, Palpatine's whispers would have far less power. When Palpatine told Anakin that the Jedi were dogmatic and uncaring, Anakin could have pointed to his own experience of being understood and forgiven as proof to the contrary. This scenario revealed something profound about the Jedi Order's fundamental flaw. They had become so focused on maintaining appearances and following rules that they'd forgotten their core purpose, serving the light and helping beings overcome darkness. The Order's rigid structure created an environment where admitting weakness felt impossible, where asking for help seemed like failure. If Anakin's confession had led to his healing, rather than his expulsion or punishment, it could have sparked a reformation within the Jedi Order itself. Other Jedi struggling with attachment, fear, or anger might have felt safe coming forward. The Order could have evolved from an institution that demanded perfection into one that acknowledged struggle and supported growth through darkness. We see hints of this better path in Luke's eventual Jedi Order, as depicted in the expanded universe materials. Luke understood that denying emotions and attachments didn't work. His connection to his friends, his love for his father, these weren't weaknesses. They were what allowed him to resist the dark side where others fell. Now, would Anakin's confession have definitely prevented his fall? Honestly, we can't say for certain. Palpatine was a master manipulator, with decades of planning behind him. The dark side's pull is powerful, especially for someone as strong in the Force as Anakin. But here's what we can say with confidence. It would have given Anakin a fighting chance. The tragedy of Anakin Skywalker isn't that he was inherently evil or destined to become Vader. The tragedy is that at multiple points, the right intervention could have saved him, and those interventions never came. The Tusken Massacre was the first major warning sign, the moment where the darkness showed itself clearly. If that moment had been met with wisdom and compassion, instead of silence and secrets, the Empire might never have risen. Billions of lives might have been saved. This is why this hypothetical scenario resonates so deeply with fans. It represents hope. It suggests that even after you've done something terrible, even after you've given in to your worst impulses, redemption is still possible if you reach out and if someone is there to catch you. Yoda could have been that someone for Anakin. Instead, Anakin carried his guilt alone until it consumed him entirely. The lesson here extends beyond Star Wars. We all carry things we're ashamed of, moments we're not proud of. The question is whether we'll let those moments define us in isolation, or whether we'll trust others enough to share our darkness and let them help us find our way back to the light. Anakin chose isolation, and it destroyed him. But in this alternative timeline, he makes a different choice, and that choice saves everything.